We've been committed to reform with this department. We know the advancements we've made with our consent decree, and to me that it is a sense of pride that this administration and the current leadership was able to break open a case that we feel was happening for over a decade.
Albuquerque Police Chief Harold Medina there going one-on-one with us today about the feds looking into a handful of his officers. Now, we first told you about this last week, but there are new details about why those officers are being investigated, how long this alleged scheme was happening, and how many people were involved, at least for now.
Yeah, for now, it doesn't appear like the investigation is over by any stretch of the imagination, but we're definitely learning a lot more about where it stands today. All of this, of course, eventually leading the Bernalillo County DA to dismiss more than 150 DWI cases so far. Again, last week, the FBI raided some homes here, including one in Los Lunas, belonging to an APD officer. But this investigation, we're told, involves at least 5 officers. 4 of them are on administrative leave, and 1 has been reassigned to another position. All 5, though, were reportedly part of APD's DWI unit. Chief Medina says those officers reportedly worked with others completely outside of law enforcement on a scheme that may have started a decade ago. And for a while, he says they hid it quite well.
I think that they just developed such a close relationships with other members of the criminal justice system that they were able to hide things very well. And this goes to show how complex and how thoughtful this scheme was.
So we also know the feds raided a local attorney's home office. We are not naming him. We are not naming the officers under investigation yet, simply because nobody has officially been charged. However, we can still connect all the dots here for all of you based on our reporting.
So we've reviewed all those DWI cases that have been recently dismissed, and the names of the same officers really kept popping up time and time again, some of them dozens of times. In fact, these are some of the dismissed cases here, most of it blurred out. At least 2 sources, though, confirming to KOB these officers allegedly made DWI arrests and then took money from attorneys to not show up to court. So essentially, they're accused of taking bribes so the cases would be thrown out.
And this means people who reportedly drove drunk were never held accountable.
So if these allegations are true, it means the people in charge of keeping them off the street did the opposite of what they were entrusted to do. Just as startling, though, is this. Look at this. One of the officers mentioned in dozens of these dismissed cases here is someone who was also named the 2023 MAD Officer of the Year for New Mexico. MAD, if you don't know, stands for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So he was honored for his work in fighting DWIs. And another officer named in a lot of those cases was hit by a drunk driver himself back in 2022. The officer, we're told, was seriously hurt. The community rallying and raising nearly $20,000 through a GoFundMe drive to help offset some of those expenses.
So we also learned today, Chief Medina revealed, he says he's known about these allegations since late 2022. That's when another officer made a complaint. It moved its way up the chain. Not long, though, after that, Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman had a complaint filed in his office, same allegations. Chief Medina says APD has been quietly investigating since then, but ultimately this was turned over to the FBI. Here we are today.
A very secretive investigation over the past year or so, not much of it leaking out, which is something, again, that Chief Medina is pretty proud of. By the way, MAD did issue us this statement about the investigation. This is from their state executive director. It reads, at least in part, quote, "Victims and survivors' lives have been changed forever as a result of someone getting behind the wheel while impaired. We hope for a swift investigation. Driving while impaired is a serious and violent crime," unquote. And the mayor, Tim Keller, also stating if all this is indeed true, he doesn't want anyone involved working for the city ever again.
And we know that this federal investigation is not sitting well with some city leaders. Last night, several city councilors criticized both the mayor's administration and the police department for lack of communication since the investigation was revealed.
I'm just really frustrated that there's been a lack of communication with us and a lack of communication ultimately with the people. People of Albuquerque need to know that their leaders are engaged in this, and there has been no communication from them. None. And when they reach out to me, I can't give them any more.
And again, We're hearing from Mayor Keller just basically sending us that statement that he doesn't want anybody involved to work for the city ever again, should be held accountable, and that this involves a handful of longtime officers going back a decade.
File with a TurboTax Live Premium expert who's just right for your investment.
And every day we are learning more about the ongoing federal investigation involving a handful of Albuquerque police, DWI officers, and apparently a local attorney.
That's right. Once again, though, we are still not releasing any of their names, but what we can tell you is more about the scheme and also a little more about the officers involved. Yep. Our own Spencer Schott joining us from our newsroom to break down what we do know so far. Spencer.
Well, Trevor, we have learned that those officers have been reassigned or placed on leave. They've also recently been placed on the district attorney's Giglio or Brady list. Essentially, this is a list of law enforcement officers whose credibility as a witness has been put in question. And the DA's office won't confirm why the 4 officers are now on that list, but a spokesperson said they have just recently been added. Now, once you're on this list, anytime an officer is called as a witness in a case, the prosecutors would have to disclose that to the defense. The Law Office of the Public Defender says the Giglio-Brady list is one way to hold police officers accountable and assure that their testimony in court is reliable. And as we learn more about these officers, the U.S. Attorney's Office has confirmed that the raids, the on-leave officers, are all connected to the more than 150 DWI cases that have been dropped by the District Attorney's Office. APD Chief Harold Medina also confirms all of the officers are part of the DWI unit. And now this investigation is still ongoing, but Chief Medina says those officers could face more serious consequences down the road.
If that information comes that they were more involved and that there's something we should be concerned about, well, then it could move to administrative leave, and ultimately it could lead to some type of termination.
We're still digging into this investigation and we're learning more, and we will bring you those details once we learn them. But for now, Tessa, you're joined with Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman for more about the Brady list, what it means for these officers, and the case involved.
That's exactly right, Spencer. Thanks so much for breaking down everything. And yes, we do have Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman joining us. First, the sheer magnitude of cases you've had to dismiss already, more than 150. I mean, I don't think any prosecutor ever expects to have to do something to that capacity.
I'm sick to my stomach. The fact of the matter is, you're right, no prosecutor would ever want to dismiss that number of DWI cases. But I had no choice. I have certain ethical obligations as a prosecutor, and I'm going to ensure that any witness we present to a judge or a jury is a credible witness that does not have integrity issues. And I can't do that in these cases now. And you know, DWI cases are highly police officer intense. In other words, their testimony is what a finder of fact, a jury or a judge, is going to decide not guilty or guilty. And I'm not going to chance the reputation of our criminal justice system or the reputation, the credibility of my office with putting up witnesses that shouldn't be put.
Are you suspecting you're going to have to dismiss any more cases?
I think there may be a few more. I mean, my office has reviewed over 1,000 cases.
Wow.
So we feel like we've got most of them now that we need to dismiss. Thank God, I don't believe at this point we have any cases where there were victims that were severely hurt. But we do have a few felonies, I think, that we've had to dismiss based on the fact that that person had prior DWIs and it was up at the level of a felony, and so we've had to dismiss some cases. Dismissing any case for Giglio-Brady issues is extremely unfortunate, but this number obviously is unbelievable.
I know you're probably going to say you can't answer, but I have to ask.
Sure.
What you could possibly tell us why these officers were reportedly not showing up to court? What was there an incentive?
Let me put it to you this way. There's an ongoing federal investigation. I want the federal authorities, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, to do a thorough, complete investigation to root out any issues that they see. And when they complete that, I imagine a lot more will come to light, but at this point, I don't want to compromise that. I want them to be able to do their work.
It's fair enough. With the Giglio list, how does that work? Once an officer is put on that list, Is it bar none, every case that he or she's involved in is thrown out, or there's different case-by-case circumstances?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. However, that has to be disclosed, of course, to defense counsel, as it should be. As it should be, and that's a case that goes back to 1966, and the Supreme Court opined on why it was so important that prosecutors disclose that kind of information, and we agree with that. We should. At the same time, DWI cases, if you don't have the DWI investigation, you
don't have much.
You don't.
Yeah.
And it's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, a short-term hurt, if you will, dismissing all these cases. But in the long term, the most important thing to me is the credibility of our office, the credibility of the criminal justice system, and I will not put law enforcement officers on the stand that have integrity issues. I just won't do it.
We know that the cases already dismissed were active. Is there any concern about prior cases involving these officers being appealed, or some kind of ramification because somebody was convicted or took a plea deal if there are credibility issues?
Listen, if obviously lawyers are going to do their job, and defense lawyers out there that are representing individual folks who believe for some reason that they need to challenge whatever adjudication took place in the past, whether or not it was a plea agreement, they can file that necessary paperwork, and we'll take a look at it, and if we don't believe that that case should be overturned, we'll argue that way.
I have one final question for you. I mean, drunk driving has been a generational killer in our state. You are the top prosecutor in the Metro, charged with keeping our families safe and going after people who need to be held accountable. What does this investigation do to the integrity of trying to stop drunk driving?
Listen, I am confident, and let's remember this. So many of our police officers are wonderful police officers who do so much to wear that badge and are great public servants. And it may take a little bit of time, but APD, I'm sure, will reconstitute its DWI unit in an appropriate manner, and we'll continue to hold people accountable, and we will prosecute people who drive drunk on the streets and hurt people. And that's just something we are committed to do at our office. We have 14 prosecutors in our office that prosecute DWIs, domestic violence, and shoplifting every single day. Those are the three areas they prosecute. This is a big hit to everybody, and we all feel it at our office. We're all disgusted that we had to do this, but it's something we have to do because of our ethical obligations.
Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman, I appreciate you being here and your candor, and we'll be, I'm sure, reaching out more as this continues. Thank you. Trevor? All right.
Our Target 7 team has been going through the cases dismissed by the DA.
Target 7's John Cardinelli joins us now. John, what have you been able to find out?
Well, Shelley and Doug, in digging through those cases, we've discovered every single one is connected to the same APD officers. In addition, some of the cases dismissed involve those who had prior DWIs. Since last Thursday, 159 DWI cases have been dismissed by Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman in connection to an FBI investigation.
I will tell you, dropping 150 DWI cases, dismissing them, is like taking a gut punch.
Target 7 combed through every single case dismissed and discovered they're connected to the same 5 APD DWI officers.
What I'm aware of so far, number one, is this involves a handful of officers.
But let's take a deeper look at what we were able to find. It turns out some of the people whose cases were dismissed also had something in common. 14% had prior DWIs.
What do you know about repeat DWI offenders?
They keep doing it, in particular if there are no consequences for their behavior.
Linda Atkinson of the DWI Resource Center has been monitoring drunk driving cases for decades. She's concerned that these repeat offenders are now being let off the hook.
I know at one point we were looking at repeat offenders. We would see more fatalities and injuries because of that particular group of DWI offenders.
The data Target 7 collected also showed 27% of the cases dismissed were people charged with aggravated DWI, meaning they had a higher blood alcohol level.
We know the higher the BAC, the more dangerous the driving behavior is.
And that is true. According to this 2023 study done by the U.S. Department of Transportation, it says 23% of all fatal crashes in New Mexico were caused by someone with a high BAC.
It is frustrating to see the work that most law enforcement do and do well, and then you've got these bad apples, and everything goes away, and the community is very dangerous.
Tonight, APD telling us 5 officers are being notified that they are the targets of the investigation. 4 of the officers are on administrative leave, and 1 officer is on administrative assignment. For Target 7, I'm John Cardinelli.
And good evening, New Mexico. With each day, there are more repercussions in the federal investigation into multiple Albuquerque police officers.
Our KOB4 team has spent hours independently confirming the details agents have yet to release themselves that ultimately led to the recent dismissal of dozens of DWI cases. And tonight, we are taking what is the next step in our reporting and letting you know who is the target of this federal investigation and why.
And we still want to emphasize none of the people we're about to identify have been officially charged as of this point. Now, here's why we're naming them. Our KOB4 team dug through hundreds of public records to identify 4 officers in APD's DWI unit. We confirmed all 4 were just added to the Bernalillo County District Attorney's list of officers who have credibility issues as witnesses in court. We also confirmed the FBI raided the office of a local attorney who represented clients in the recently dismissed DWI cases, as well as other cases. And finally, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Albuquerque confirms those raids are connected to their investigation.
And with that, the 4 Albuquerque police officers at the center of this federal investigation are Officer Honorio Alba Jr., also Officer Harvey Johnson, Officer Joshua Montano, and Officer Nelson Ortiz.
A supervisor is also implicated, but we cannot independently identify him tonight. Meanwhile, the local attorney being investigated is Thomas Clear III. Now, here's the basis of this alleged scheme at the center of this investigation. These officers make DWI arrests. The defendants hire this particular attorney. The officers don't show up to court, and then the cases get dismissed.
It's really a scenario that happened time and time again in the cases that we reviewed. But for now, though, let's look at what we've learned about those officers, the attorney, and how exactly we connected them to this investigation. And for more on that, we're going to bring in Spencer Schott now. So, Spencer, we first learned something was going on because of a situation at a home in Los Lunas just last week.
Yeah, we confirmed through property records that the home that was being raided belonged to APD officer Harvey Johnson. The FBI raided Johnson's home last Thursday, and that's the same day the Bernalillo County District Attorney Office dismissed dozens of DWI cases. We determined that he was the arresting officer on 33 of 156 dismissed cases, or about 21% of those cases. APD confirms Johnson is now on administrative leave.
Okay. Spencer, thanks so much. So, Trevor, let's talk about Officer Honorio Alba Jr. now. I mean, he was actually honored for his work against drunk driving just last year.
He was. The group known as MAD, or Mothers Against Drunk Driving, named him the top officer for the year 2023 in the entire state of New Mexico. Here, in fact, is a post on social media in which APD is congratulating him on winning this award. There's one winner from each state, and he was the sole winner from New Mexico. This is dated actually July 26th of last year, so that was only about 6 months ago. For now, here are a few more facts about Officer Alba. He made approximately $148,000 last year, making him one of the highest earners anywhere in that department. He is also on paid administrative leave as all this plays out. But he's the officer whose name appears the most in the cases that were recently dismissed by the Bernalillo County DA's office. He's named in 72 of the 156 dismissed cases. That amounts to about 46% of them.
Yeah, let's get back to Spencer now, because Officer Joshua Montano, there's a lot to unpack with him.
Yeah, Officer Montano has been on APD's DWI unit for a long time. In fact, back in 2022, a drunk driver crashed into Montano's patrol car, severely injuring him. The community and local churches came together and they raised thousands of dollars for him through a GoFundMe to help with Montano's medical expenses. Now, he was the arresting officer in 44 of the 156 dismissed cases, around 28%, and he also is on administrative leave at this time.
All right, and then the final officer we can confirm tonight is Nelson Ortiz.
Yeah, Ortiz is yet another member of the DWI unit who happened to be one of the highest earners for the department last year. He made around $136,000. He's also reportedly on paid administrative leave right now, along with 3 of the 4 others under investigation. Once again, of those 156 cases dismissed as of now, his name appears in 11 of them. But right now, let's focus more on the attorney, Thomas Clear III. So Spencer, what have we confirmed about his connection?
Well, Trevor, he was the attorney who represented a lot of the defendants in these dismissed cases. We confirmed the FBI agents raided his Albuquerque office last Thursday, the same day they raided Officer Harvey Johnson's home. Neighbors told us 5 or 6 FBI vehicles and twice as many agents showed up at that home office early that morning. They say that agents shouted "search warrant, FBI, come out" multiple times before realizing no one was home. They had to use a battering ram to break down the front door.
This is kind of out of the blue, not something you expect in your neighborhood, especially with the neighbors who you interact with frequently enough.
And so the final element we really needed to feel comfortable to independently connect these officers to the investigation came earlier today. Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman confirmed all 4 of those officers were recently added to his office's Brady or Giglio list.
What exactly does that mean, though? For that, we'll send it back to Spencer.
Well, the Brady or Giglio list is a list of law enforcement officers who have credibility issues as witnesses. DA Bregman confirmed that they added 4 officers recently. That's Officer Alba, Montano, Ortiz, and Johnson. They were all recently added. And prosecutors have to disclose this list to the defense if any officers on this list should be called to testify. Representatives with the Law Office for the Public Defender say the Giglio Brady list is one way to hold public officers accountable and ensure that their testimony in court is reliable. DA Bregman said at the end of the day he had no other option than to dismiss 156 active DWI cases, some of them tied to these officers.
DWI cases are focused on the testimony of the DWI investigating officer. So without that testimony, there's no way to continue on with that case. And it's extremely disappointing. It's very upsetting, but it's something we have to do. I think in due time, people will understand why they were put on that list.
Bregman says his office reviewed more than 1,000 DWI cases after learning about this federal investigation, and he's not ruling out the possibility of having to dismiss more.
Yeah, that's the disappointing part here among many. So the question a lot of people have at this point is, why did these officers not show up to court? Was there an incentive? That's part of the investigation nobody is clarifying yet. So I asked Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman about it on KOB4 at 6:30 earlier today. I know you're probably going to say you can't answer, but I have to ask.
Sure.
What you could possibly tell us why these officers were reportedly not showing up to court. What was there an incentive?
Let me put it to you this way. There's an ongoing federal investigation. I want the federal authorities, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, to do a thorough, complete investigation to root out any issues that they see. And when they complete that, I imagine a lot more will come to light. But at this point, I don't want to compromise that. I want them to be able to do their work.
That's fair enough. Our KOB4 team will stay on this investigation. We are expecting more information from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the coming days. Again, none of the people we named tonight are charged at this time. But could this impact other drunk driving cases in the metro? And what does this mean for our police force and, of course, the New Mexicans it serves? You can see all of our coverage on this investigation at KOB.com.
I think anyone who is a parent who has someone living in their house who's engaged in remarkably dangerous and disturbing behavior, do you just turn a blind eye to that, or do you take steps to address it?
And that is why Jacob John's attorney says the parents of the man accused of shooting his client should be held accountable. And tonight, those parents are named in a new civil lawsuit. Of course, you're seeing the video reminding you of what happened in late September. Police say Ryan Martinez shot Johns at a protest over a Juan de Oñate statue in Española. Martinez is also named in that lawsuit.
Cassie Foote has been digging into the story for us. So Cassie, why are the parents included in all of this?
Well, John Day, the attorney representing Jacob Johns, says according to police, Martinez's disturbing behavior started at home, like walking around the neighborhood with an AR-15 style assault rifle at night. He says while Martinez pulled the trigger at that protest, his parents could have stepped in before.
What started as a peaceful protest over a Juan de Oñate statue in Española changed Jacob Johns' life forever.
He's still having to have these tubes in his body to drain from infections that were caused by the shooting. So this has not been easy for him, and it's been actually very painful, but it's he's getting there.
Cell phone video shows the moments it turned violent. Police say that's Ryan Martinez pulling out a gun and shooting Johns.
The shooter was full of racial hatred, full of prejudice, full of bias, and ready to commit violence against Native people.
John Day is representing Johns. He filed a civil lawsuit Tuesday. It names Ryan Martinez and his parents, Brian and Adelita Martinez. Martinez is charged with attempted first-degree murder and aggravated assault, but Day says his parents should be held accountable too.
And through their negligence, they let it happen. If they had taken appropriate and proper steps, they could have stopped this, and they didn't.
The suit states Brian and Adelita were there in 2018 when Martinez was questioned by the FBI over threats he made online against the federal government. And he had an illegal rifle and was using a 3D printer at their home in Sandia Park to make parts that illegally convert semi-automatic rifles into fully automatic fire. According to the lawsuit, a neighbor told Martinez's parents that he saw him walking around their gated community at night with an AR-15 style rifle and a handgun.
If you're in a situation where you know if there's some red flags and a lot of red flags, and by a lot, I mean a lot of red flags. If you know that they're there and you choose not to do anything through your own negligence, you are allowing bad acts to occur.
We reached out to Martinez's attorney but did not hear back. We also called the phone numbers listed with Martinez's parents but did not get a call back either. Ryan Martinez is in jail while he waits for his trial. Jury selection is scheduled for May. Tessa, Trevor?
All right, Cassie, thanks.
Thanks so much.
Albuquerque police say officers opened fire on a man armed with a handgun, threatening people at a truck stop earlier this morning.
Police Chief Harold Medina arrived on scene a while ago and spoke to our crew. Let's get out to Diana Castillo. She is live at the scene where she has been throughout the morning. Diana, tell us what you've learned.
Well, Danielle, Gabe, this is still a very active scene, as you can see behind me. Now, Chief Harold Medina gave us a clear timeline of what led up to this officer-involved shooting. Now, this is what we know so far. We know that officers were called to the 6 and I-40 Loves Travel Center at around 2:40 this morning, where they got several reports of a man threatening and pointing a handgun at several people. Now, Chief Medina did say that a security guard from this Loves Travel Center fired a shot at the man. Chief Medina says that didn't stop him, though. And that video from the Real-Time Crime Center shows the suspect pointing a gun at several passing cars, even throwing rocks, and at one point even throwing the gun. When officers arrived, that's when police say the man turned to officers and began walking towards them.
At one point in time, we will have video showing the individual started to close distance and walk back towards officers, pointing the handguns at officers. At least one officer did discharge their service rifle.
Chief Medina says the man was shot at least once and taken to the UNM hospital. He is in surgery this morning, but no word on what condition the suspect is in. APD says no officers were injured in the shooting. Police are asking any victims of this to come forward. Now, something you do want to keep in mind is that this is going to be an ongoing investigation, so there is still going to be closures surrounding this truck stop, including the on and off ramps to I-40 and 6th Street.
Breaking news.
That breaking news, someone was found dead in northeast Albuquerque. Police tell us it happened around 4 this morning near Montgomery and Jefferson. Officers say during their preliminary investigation, they determined the death was suspicious. We have a crew going to that scene and we'll give you an update once we get it.
Police have issued more warrants in a case where the CEO of a local security company is accused of threatening a man with a gun. Now, Isabel Jones and Graham Pace will face charges. Isabel is the daughter of International Protective Services owner Aaron Jones. Graham Pace is Jones' business partner. Police say Aaron Jones threatened a man with a gun in the parking lot of a Popeyes earlier this month. The man was reportedly in an argument over parking with Jones. Court documents say after threatening the man, Aaron Jones hid his gun in Isabel's purse, and then Graham Pace reportedly hid in a bathroom with the purse when police arrived. Isabel Jones and Graham Pace are charged with tampering with evidence and conspiracy. Aaron Jones was released from jail last week, though a judge ordered him to not have any weapons, and he can no longer go to that restaurant where this allegedly happened.
We're learning more about a gruesome child abuse case that's left one child dead. As more information comes out about what happened, it's leaving investigators with even more questions. Tamara Lopez has been following this story for us. And Tamara, part of what makes it so complicated right now is how many people are involved.
Yeah, Tommy, 4 people were arrested after a 3-year-old girl was taken to a UNM hospital for severe injuries. And we want to warn you that some of the details of this case are very disturbing.
State versus Carrie Santos.
Carrie Santos was very emotional in a court appearance Friday. She's facing several serious charges, including child abuse, resulting in death after she brought her 3-year-old daughter to UNM Hospital, already dead and covered in bruises last week. Santos and 3 others were later arrested after investigators say Santos' story did not add up about why the 3-year-old was hurt so badly. Police say the little girl had bruises healing at different rates around her wrists, ankles, forehead, and underwear line. Court documents show Santos told police she was leaving Massachusetts to get away from a bad situation, and that she'd just gotten to town 30 minutes before taking the little girl to the hospital. Santos told police the little girl fell off a toilet and hit her head at a rest stop, but investigators say her other kids told them another story. Court documents say Santos did not want to go to the hospital because there was police there. James Welch was also in court Friday. Police say his apartment in southeast Albuquerque is where much of the abuse happened.
The older sister, who was subject to the Safe House interview, she detailed that the child had been tied up, and she demonstrated this with a doll. She demonstrated that the child had been tied. Her ankles had been tied together, and she'd been tied to the corner of the bed.
According to police, the child said she and her siblings were frequently groped by adults and that her mom just stood and watched. The state argued all 4 adults, including Welch, would have witnessed the abuse because Welch's apartment is a small studio.
Judge, this is a child that based on the evidence that we have here, was beaten to death.
And that Welch did nothing to help the 3-year-old. Welch's lawyer argued that Welch was only told about the abuse and did not see it.
But no one has claimed that Mr. Welch did anything to this child.
The judge ruled Welch would be released ahead of a possible trial. Austin Bing was also in court. His hearing was rescheduled until next week. According to police, Bing and his mother, Christina Hopkins Pena Cantor, were in the car driving to Albuquerque with Santos and her kids.
Now, an official cause of death for the 3-year-old girl has not been determined yet, and Santos's 2 other kids were taken into CYFD custody for a 72-hour hold. We asked where they were now, and a CYFD spokesperson said the agency could not release that information to us. Tommy.
Thank you, Tamara.